Okay, so to-do app requirements: be able to create a new to-do, be able to complete to-do, be able to delete to-do. Latest to-do should come first, and as a bonus, if you have time, be able to change the order of to-do with up and down buttons. Cool. So where should we start? Let's start with creating the project. So as I said, let's use a create React app. I think that's what you will be using anyway, because it's just the easiest way to do it. To do, you can create a very simple React without create React app, without all the webpack and stuff like that. But if you that's great for, well, actually for little exercises like we have in here, it's okay. But I would say if you're starting any project and you don't know what the size might be at the end of it, I would say go with create React app, because honestly there is just nothing bad to say about it. It really makes your life much easier. So I would definitely recommend that. And we need to check. Oh, it's running. Okay. So you can see already in here that it's installing React, React DOM, React scripts, and CRI template. So all these packages you would have to maintain yourself if you installed it from scratch. So it's definitely, I would definitely recommend it to use this tool. And I think we can already open and that should be big enough. The one thing that comes pre-configured with Create React App are hot fields as well. So as you develop, whenever you change something, you will see it straight away in your browser and things like that. So really nice things that you can do. Come on. Have you created already any React application now during the course?
So we've done React exercises. So I think we didn't have to configure it from the start. It's already all built in.
Okay. But you did some React already, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. So what we've done is, what I've done on the exercise side, I think I'm still towards the end of last week's exercises. It's about using React in a very basic way. So it's about adding a name on the list and removing it, stuff like that.
Well, that's already, I mean, if you can do that in React, that's pretty much everything that React can do. From there, you just customize it to whatever you want it to.
Yeah, so I was actually kind of blocked because, for example, that deletes, kind of creating a user and then deleting it. I kind of didn't understand how to do that. And yesterday we had this lesson with Basil where he explained how to move a function from the parent to the child, and that actually kind of, I think, solved that. So I still need to complete the exercise, but
right. So you understand what props are in React?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Yeah, cool. So that's.
So I understand props. I understand how to pass some props to the child and then kind of use the props there.
Did he show you how you would pass props from child to parent?
Yeah, from a rendering perspective, you mean, or like the props?
Well, if you want to pass data around, you know how to pass. Well, data, props are just data, and doesn't matter if it's function or not. So if you pass from parent to child, right? That's what you understand. If you want to pass something from child to parent, does it make sense?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can't remember. I guess it's the same logic, wouldn't it? From parent to child and child to parent, or is it a different logic?
Well, it's a little bit of a trick question. That's why I'm asking it.
Okay.
You don't.
No, I think what we did is we did. So basically, we would have on the main app, we would have all the kind of the users, and then we would use a component to have, for example, a user card. So let's say you have the user card would have the username, the user age, the user gender, and you would pass the kind of the main info from that is at the parent level, and then to the child, and then you would have props.name or props.gender at the child level, and you would kind of render it, so pass it back, I guess, to the parents as a rendered user card, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So the one thing that, again, state management, the one thing that is kind of tricky, let's say, about React, but it's done on purpose, is that you can't, like, you passing data. If you imagine your components as a tree structure, you passing it down from the top to the bottom, let's say. So you can't really, so you're passing it from parent down to the children. You can't really pass stuff back up, let's say, if that makes any sense.
Yes, I think that's what Vasil said yesterday, that it can't be the opposite. It has to be from parent to child.
Yeah. So there is a
okay, hence your trick question. I understand.
Yeah. So there is so yeah, you don't. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this is what the state management comes in, because basically, if you want to kind of have a data that is generated in child and you want to do something with it in parent, then you need to have it somewhere else. You cannot pass it back to the parent. You need to basically update it somewhere else, which will be your kind of like a data storage. And then the parent would be subscribed to those changes, and it would basically get them from there, let's say.
Right, yeah. Makes sense.
Right, so now we have application running, so we can start working with it. Is this big enough for you, this editor?
On my side, yes, it's perfect, quite big, I think.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Perfect.
So let's just delete everything that we have in here. This is our app.js. You might have seen that before. I mean, obviously, all these things we don't really like, ignore them for now. This is our main thing for now. So just ignore the other things. If I delete everything from app.js, you'll see that we have empty page. Let's get rid of the styles as well, because we don't need them. We can create new ones probably. And index.js is just your usual kind of render, React render. You should see this in your projects as well, probably. So now we can start from the up. So we all understand that this is our top component, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, this whole window now is up component. This is our component. This is our up component. So what do we need? We need a to-do list where we just basically create to-dos and display them. So I tend to start from smaller components, because then you can kind of build it up in your page. So let's create a component for a to-do. So to-do, and let's just say to-do. Take props. Oh, actually, you don't have to do that in the new version of React anymore. Yeah, okay. Cool. So now let's just do, if we return something, so it will basically render. So let's do h1.
It's weird. You're doing export.
Yeah, you can do it different ways. You can do it this way. You can do it that way. It doesn't really matter. I can
okay.
I can. Let me just.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, it does
I didn't
matter
know that.
in for different things, but for now, let me just do it so it doesn't confuse you basically, because it is confusing. It's just the way that it's compiled later. Oh, it's compiled later that it matters, but otherwise it's there's quite a lot of discussion about this with other developers as well, like if this is the better way, or like a one-line export is better way and stuff. So you will find that. So now we're using our to-do component. Need to import it. And I think, yeah, so now we see hello world in here. Let me just, would it be easier for you if I just put it on the same screen? Maybe.
You don't compromise the spacing or the size, because the size is really perfect on the phones.
Yeah. Let me just do this then.
Yeah, that'll be perfect.
So you can see the updates as we do them. Cool. So now we created our to-do component and we added it to the main component. So this will be our to-do item. So what will we want in the to-do item? We will want it to be some kind of title. And what else do we need to do with the application? We need to create it, complete it. So there will be like a checkbox, delete it. So something that deletes it. And that's pretty much it. The sorting we can leave for the end. So let's create a div for now. Right? And it will have three things in it. It will have a checkbox. So let's do input type checkbox. It will have the title. Let's give it a span for now, or let's give it h3 or h3. And it will have the delete button. So button type button delete button. Okay, so now this is our to-do, right? So we have checkbox where we can say if it was actually completed or not. You have the actual, not sure if title is the best word, but like the description of the to-do and the text of it. And we have the delete button that would get rid of the to-do. If I now multiply it, we should have the same thing a couple of times on the page, right? So now with the multiplying, we should probably create another component that will make it into a list. So let's create a to-do list component. And please stop me if that something doesn't make sense, or if you think that some choice, like why did I do it or something like that, just stop me so I can explain. And we will create another component, to-do list. And in here, we will have return, and let's say it's gonna be a list. Right? Now let's just customize it a little bit more now. So we already have the to-do and we have the props. So now obviously the first thing that will come from the props is the title or the content or whatever. So let's call it title. So in here we can do the props title. We are now making this component already, let's say, dynamic by passing in stuff. So if you look at our app.js, we can say title and Thomas, title, Ricardo, and we should have Thomas and Ricardo to-dos. Yeah. So now we made it more dynamic by just adding this one prop. So that's our to-do. Now the to-do list, so actually taking these and putting them into props. So the to-do list should get the list of to-dos that we want to display, right? So we will do something like props to-dos, let's say. So this would be our list of to-dos.
Did you import them at the to-do level then?
Yeah, we will import this in there later.
Okay.
So now instead of actually rendering the to-dos, we will just do to-do list. Yeah, and we should see and we should see the UL element, which we can't see now, but because we don't have any to-dos in there, but that's what it is. If I do to-dos in here and just say, you know, hello, then you will see hello in there. Okay, so we already have something in there now. So now passing in to-dos, we need to, at this point, already at this point, this is quite interesting to actually realize these things. You start playing an architect, right? Because you thinking, okay, now I have to-do list. That to-do list is gonna render my to-dos. So obviously, I need to kind of choose the interface of how am I passing the to-dos around. And this is already kind of architecture decision. So in here, you can say, okay, I'm gonna define my to-dos in here. And it's gonna be a list of something. What is it gonna be a list of? Probably we will need title for every to-do. Well, actually, this is I'm skipping ahead because this is already my thinking. But normally you would say, okay, let's create then Thomas and Ricardo like this. So I have now a list of my to-dos, and I can pass them in here. Okay, and now in here you can see already I received it. I'm just rendering it as a text. But in what we really want to do in here, we want to import our to-do component, and we want to reuse it in here. So the way to do it, we want to loop through all the to-dos and render them. So we would say props to-dos map, and you would just render to-do something like this, right? So now you see that we have actually the list already. And now this is already all hooked up into kind of our, let's say, dynamic thing. So if I just in here, if I add Christina, then we should see Christina in there with the whole interface and everything. So this is very nicely hooked up already. So let's continue. The one thing I would say is, and this is just my preference, I would prefer to kind of avoid these kind of renders inside of your JSX, so inside of your HTML, let's say, what I would do is I would define a function in there. So I would say something like render to do, and that would take all the to-dos. So props.
Props to to-dos.
Yeah. Actually, let's just do yeah, to-dos. And it would basically do this, right? So
We don't need props there. You don't need to return anything.
Yeah, you do. Yeah. So now in here we could just do render to-dos, and we can pass in the to-dos, something like this. Render to-dos. Oh, that didn't refresh properly. So. There you go. Right, so I'm just trying to kind of avoid having all this logic inside of the HTML, because it's just, I feel like it's just a little bit easier to read.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we are rendering everything. We are rendering our to-do in here. Perfect. So by the way, I wanted to ask you, did Vasil show you how to destructure your props?
I'm not sure. No, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
No.
So basically, what I like to do is, instead of writing props in here and then props.title everywhere, you would destructure them. So you would do something like this.
Yes, we saw that. So
yeah.
You have exactly, and you said title, comma, whatever you want, like content, and then you say equal props. So, yeah. Oh no, we didn't do it this way. We did it like we have a line, like so we have props here, and then.
Oh right, so you did something like this, right? So you would do
exactly with everything.
Those props.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean you can do it this way as well. I actually prefer to do it this way, but it doesn't really that doesn't really matter, to be honest. Yeah, I mean there are slight differences, but let's not get into that now. So yes, normally I would write it like this, because then it's kind of easier to read what you're actually getting from there. So I would do this, and then I would do this, and I want something like that. Obviously, you can get into this kind of situation where I should probably, rename it just so it's not the same. But it really that depends on just on the naming and everything. So now we are rendering all these, and we are passing it in here like that. So that's cool. Now we have these. We need to start making the functionality, and the functionality, the first one is to mark it if it's already completed or not. So obviously we need to somehow capture the data if it's actually completed or not. How would we do that? We need to extend our data set with this information. So as you go from this is your first version, as you iterate on it, you know that you need to add to each of them, you need to add some kind of data, which is like completed. I can just tell you now, please, try and think about it very carefully, because I actually, when I interview people, what I've seen a lot is that people do something like this. And then they do true, false, false, right? So they basically split the data into two arrays, and they will say, well, this is my title array, so they do something like to this title, and then they create another one with a complete status, right? This is, if you look at it like this, it's I mean, it's already bad. I don't know how you look at it. In my eyes, it's already bad bad, but the main problem with this is it's not maintainable, right? Like you cannot, like what if I take Ricardo and put it on the first place? Then I have to move this one in there as well. It's insane. The kind of inconsistencies you can get from this are really, really bad. So what you should think about instantly would be converting these into an object, right? So if I convert each of them into an object, then I can basically add whatever data I want to them. And this goes back to, this will resemble to you a little bit the document-based databases, if you remember that we did together as well. If you look at the structure of the data, it's almost like you're creating your own database of documents, right? So you have your basically to-dos, and then you have title, and then you can add more parameters to it, basically. So now we have this. Obviously, because we changed this should not render now. So if I save this, you will see we don't have anything because we changed the API we changed the structure of this data. This is where you as an architect come in, right? So you change the structure of the data. You need to go back here and you say, okay, now where does it actually change? So we passing this whole to-dos into here, into to-do list. What do we do with it in the to-do list? We take each to-do and we just pass the whole to-do into a title. So now if you come in here and you put your console log in here and you console log title, what do I see in the console? Who can tell me?
So if you console log title, you're passing title.
So I'm passing this whole to-dos into a to-do list.
You will have object.
Yeah. So if I look at my console now, objects are not worked out. Let me just get rid of this. Right. So you can see I see these objects as you said, right? So instead of getting just the title now, I'm getting actual objects. So I need to change the API of the whole thing. So in here, I don't really need to change it, right? Because we are in here, we just taking the title. This to do, all it needs to know is that it's taking a title and it's rendering it somewhere. And this is a kind of a beauty of what we call dummy components or end of the line components. These are components that are purely for rendering. They usually don't have much of functions in it. They just take some data and render it. And because of that, you don't really need to destructure anything or anything like that. You just, if you write them well, you don't have to touch them because all it matters is how you pass the data in. So in here in to-do list, instead of passing the whole to-do, we just pass to-do title. And then suddenly everything is fixed. And we didn't have to touch this one at all. So that's why kind of dummy components are very important because they will be very quick to re-render and they will be much easier to maintain. Right, so now we have this, everything updated, we can get on with the actual functionality. So let's add if they are complete or not. So completed true, completed false, and completed false. Yeah. And now to kind of represent that in the view, let's say that this will be basically the representation, the checkbox. So in here, in the to-do list, again, we need to pass in if it was completed or not. There is gonna be one thing that I want to tell you. Let me just actually do this just to make it a little bit. I usually like to kind of format them this way. so you can, it's easier to read. But anyway, so now completed, and you would just pass in
to-do.completed.
Yeah, so now we're passing in if it's actually completed or not. And now in to-do, we need to use it. So we take it from props, and we want to set the check status of the checkbox to whatever completed is. So we would say checked equals completed. So now we should see that Thomas is completed, Ricardo and Christina not. If we go here and we say Christina is completed, then we should see that Christina is checked as well. See? Now, one thing I wanted to tell you is, and again, this is more of my personal preference. If you can see, I am passing in all these as a single pieces of data, right? So I'm passing the title as a title, complete as a complete. I'm passing them in as a simple values rather than what I could do as well. I could just say to do equals to do, right? And then inside of here, I could change the way that we get the data. So I could say to do.completed and to do.title, right? I could do something like this. So I completely changed the API of these, and it's the same result. Why I don't like it this way is because in this way, you don't actually know what you are passing in. You're passing the whole object, but you don't know what's inside of the object. So
yes, you don't know what your to-do is going to actually do.
Exactly. So the to-do becomes much less predictable, right? You don't know what the API of to-do is. You need to read this whole thing to know exactly what should be in this object. Not to mention that, as I showed you before, if I now change the structure of the data now, instead of changing it here where I actually use the to-do, I need to go down to the to-do itself and change it, right? So I really don't, I prefer this approach to the other one, because then you explicitly saying, okay, this component is receiving these props, and you know exactly what they're going to be doing. And also it helps then with like a prop verification. So you can, like prop types, you can basically say, okay, this component is receiving title and completed. Title should be a string and completed should be a boolean, right? So you can define that, and then it's very similar to TypeScript. And then once you do that, then it will give you errors in a console if you pass in something else. So I think the advantages of this are more than passing the whole object. But again, it's up to anyone. The React is not going to force you to do it one way or another. Right, so we have completed. So now we have this state, we have the title, and we have the delete button that doesn't do anything yet. So I think we are pretty much done with this, right? This is doing pretty much everything we want. I mean, this is showing pretty much everything we want. It doesn't do anything yet. So I think the next step, now we can move away from this, and we can create the form to actually add new to-dos, right? Or no, let's do adding at the end. Let's continue with this. So let's go back to the checkboxes. We want to do something based on the checkbox. We want to mark it as a complete or not. So what we need to do first is, because we will be manipulating all this data, right? We want to create a state out of this, because as it is now, this is not a state. This is just a value, and for React, this is a static value that will be always the same, always like this on every render. You cannot change it. If you change it, it will go back to its initial state on every render. So what we want to do is we want to create a state. So we would say use state. I think you have seen this before, have you?
Yes.
Yeah. And this will be our initial state, right? Later we're gonna change it, but anyway. So.
Oh, you need to import your state. No? New state.
Set to this, and then we will import our
new state from React.
Right. So now we basically converted this into a piece of state. I still left the initial data because once we actually have the form to add new to-dos, then we're gonna remove this, but at least so now we have something to debug the application with. So now we have the to-dos, we passing it in, we already passing the state in, but that's fine. So what we want now is, when I click on this checkbox, I want to change this state to something else. So if I click on Thomas's checkbox, I want to change the completed to false rather than true, and vice versa. As you can see already now, if I click in here, it doesn't uncheck the checkbox or check the checkbox. That's because if I click, it will re-render, and the re-render will use the initial state. It doesn't actually change anything, right? So we need to basically code that. So the one way to do it is in here we need to create an action on the change of it.
On click or on change. Yeah.
Yes. So on change, right? And we need to assign it some kind of work to do, basically. Now, the thing that should change, the thing that we are trying to change, is up here, right? It's in here. So what we really need to do is we need to pass in something from here all the way down to here, so we can then change the state, let's say. And this is kind of, no, it's not prop joining yet, but anyway. So as I said before, you cannot, in here, I cannot change the to-do and it would reflect in here. You need to actually take the action from here and pass it all the way down here, so then you can execute it, and that action will then in effect change the state. So in here we can create a new action, which will be let's say like handle complete to do, and let's just pass the title in for now. So it will take title and it will do something. What it will do is it will find it. It will find the to-do that we are trying to complete, and it will change its state. So we will do yeah. So we will do.
Sorry, what does it do?
Yeah. So we we're creating an action that then we pass down to the to-dos, and it's like eventually down here on the on change, and that will be called. So let's complete this one first. So we will say on complete, right? So we're saying on complete is an action that we call when this changes.
Yes, okay, I understand that. Yeah.
Okay. And well, actually, you know what we can do? Let me just do this. So we can do it even smarter. So let's just do value, and let's do title as well. Right. So I have assigned a value to the checkbox. I will show you why in a second. So basically, the value for the checkbox, for every checkbox, is gonna be the title of the to-do, right? Eventually, you would want it to be some kind of ID or something, but for now, let's just use the title. So now, whenever you change the checkbox, or whenever you toggle it, it will call the that function, the onComplete, and the onComplete is gonna come from here basically. So in here we can just change this to event, and we can say we can say set to-dos, and we do to-dos. This is I'm just gonna create like a first function. Is definitely a better way to do this, but like let's just do this for now. To do, and then we will say if to do title equals event target value, then to do checked. Right. So what's happening in here? Sorry.
I was going to ask, why do we need to have title to have some value to check or uncheck?
Yeah. So so we need to somehow identify. So we're passing in a function that will do something that will change the state basically when you click one of these checkboxes. So we need to identify which one it actually was. The way that I've done it right now is that you take the value. The other way could be that you pass the actual position in the list, or well, ID basically. So I'm basically creating an ID. I chose title as an ID. You could use the position as well. You could use the index. So for example, you could say you could say in here would be an index. Well, actually, no. Let's do the same thing, and we could say new to-dos, and it would be to-dos and to-dos, and element target value. Complete that equals that. I'm not sure if I really like this, but like we could do this as well, and then you could do set to do's.
I mean, don't worry. I was just wondering why you passed title. I don't understand why you did this.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm just this is exactly how when I code, like when you normally code every day, this is exactly like you try different things and you kind of feel like, do I like this one more or do I not like this one more? But usually you would be like the data that you would have for this kind of application would be a little bit more robust, so you would it would kind of suggest how to implement it differently. But for now, I'm just trying to take like the simplest way basically. So what we do in here is we can pass in an index as well, and then the title would be actually the value would be actually index instead of title. So the index would be here. Why is it not the same thing? The index would be here, and it would be this one basically.
Index.
Yeah. So it would be 0, 1, 2, or whatever. And now in the onComplete, we want to pass the handle complete. So onComplete would be our, and then here handle complete. And we need to pass it in here as well. I'm kind of on purpose naming them differently everywhere, just so you see that the names don't matter because you're passing it around as a parameters basically. So in here I call it handle complete to do. I'm passing it into to-do list as a handle complete, and from here I'm passing it to do as a onComplete, and in here we're calling it in onChange. So the names don't really matter. They are pretty much like you would normally have in function parameters. That's what props basically are. So it doesn't really matter if you call it differently. I would say normally, there are some kind of naming things that I would try to stick to. For example, in here you see like the end component has, for events, it has on change and on something and on something. So normally I I would pass it in like that. If it doesn't actually, if it's not actually an event, if it's just a name of a prop, then I would pass it as a, I would create some kind of different naming convention. So yeah, but this is all up to discussion in your team. Really, that's nothing that's, there is no right nor wrong, as long as it works really.
Okay. Can you maybe show us again the whole from app to do, how you pass the function and the handle complete?
Yeah. So in here we have the handle complete to do. So we're basically creating some kind of function just to update the state, right? So this function, if you see at the end, it will just update the state with the new things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously this is wrong. So that will update the state. Now we're taking this function and passing it into the to-do list, which is.
So we're taking this function, it's handle complete equals, okay, and that's why it's named handle complete on the other one. It's because you call it here handle complete. Okay, got it.
Yeah, and then you go here and you basically just passing it in here. This is very shallow yet, but this is basically what we call a prop drilling, where you just passing a prop down here. You don't actually do anything with it in here, and you're passing it straight down there. This is what we call prop drilling, basically, because you just passing props down to your children because you need it somewhere at the end of the chain. Yeah,
and then so basically the action happens on app, but the rendering happens at to do.
Yeah, exactly. So you're passing it into as a onComplete. This onComplete at this point is exactly the same as this thing. You just passed it down all the way to the component, right? So this function that will be run on change is basically this one. That's why it's taking an event as a parameter, because we're basically saying here is the event and take the value. What we can do is, instead of passing this, because again, if we say this is here is an event, we kind of adding a knowledge to this component that what is this component doing. So what we can do instead, we can say in here, we can define handle change function. And then in here we just write it like this. So we're creating an internal function that will take the event, and it will call the onComplete, but it will already call it with the actual index. So you don't actually even need this event. You just do that, right? So onComplete index, and you don't need this. So now we just already passing in the index. So we know in here we just take the index and that's how we target it. Now this might seem kind of like pointless to you, but what it means is that we don't need to know in here where the index came from. This function is being called, but if the index came from event, or if it was written by a user or anything like that, it doesn't really matter. It's just being called with the index of the to-do. And in here, we actually have the knowledge that, okay, this is actually coming from somewhere here, right? So now, let's just put console lock in here, just so we know. Yeah, so you can see that we are actually getting 0, 1, 2. So we are getting the correct values in here.
Yeah, you can see also your checks working. So
the checks are not working right now.
Oh no, they're not. Okay.
I'm missing something. Sorry.
False, true, true.
Yeah, so that works fine. And then we pass in the to-dos in.
And completed is coming from the to-do list.
It's coming from the to-do list, yeah. So this is part of the to-do, and it's coming from the to-do list.
Yeah.
Let me just do this. This. Also, it's not the each list in a should have unique key prop. Alright, so I need to put key in here. This key, this warning that you will see on React about the key is because of React rendering. Because basically React needs to be able to target every single element, every single component on your page to be able to re-render it whenever it needs to be re-rendered. So if you have multiple components of the same type, you need to, especially in a loop, you need to actually give them keys so you can recognize which one it is, because otherwise you can see that all of them are going to be exactly the same. So for that reason, you need to add key so it can actually target it. That's why adding a key as an index is not very useful, because the index is going to be 0, 1, 2, and then somewhere down the page you're going to have again some loop, and you will have different component, and again you will do the key 0, 1, 2, so it's not going to be able to target it properly. So usually what you do is you would create some kind of you create some kind of like a to-do and index, something like that, just to make sure that it's just to make sure it's actually unique for every component. So yeah, so you can see it in data that it's actually updating, but it's not updating in my set to-dos, set to-dos. And then I'm updating it with a new to-dos. I'm doing something really silly in here, I'm sure. Yeah, so you definitely don't need this. So you can just do to-dos and to-dos. Oh, True, false, true.
To-do index not completed.
See, told you I haven't done.
Oh, is it to-dos and to-do? No, it's
To-dos, 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 to-dos. There is also, I don't know if I have it now, but there is also nice components here, like a debugging tool for React, and you can click this highlight updates when they render. So if I refresh the page now and I click on this, see that basically no re-render is happening, because it should be. You should be able to see in here that something actually re-rendered.
so is it the set state that is not doing?
Yeah. What am I doing wrong in here? I'm missing something really silly in here.
Set to-dos, to-dos. Isn't there was this thing about use state that we always need to create a new So basically, when you set to-dos, are you not supposed to create a new array?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of doing there, but
Okay.
I mean, I think so. What if I just do?
Can you create like a const new to-dos and then something like that? Yeah. Or
What if I do this? Ah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, it was that. I don't. Yeah, silly. Sorry. I just didn't do it for a long time, I guess. But yeah, you can see now that as I'm changing it, you can see how it's highlighting everything that's changing basically. So that's really nice in this debugging tool, because if I turn it off, you're not gonna be able to see what's changing. But if I turn it on, you can see that basically everything that re-renders will be highlighted, which is quite useful.
nice.
Yeah, not sure. Anyway, it doesn't
Cool.
matter. Right, so we have it working now at least. Now we have working basically the changing of the to-do to the completion state. So we can go on and do the deletion as well. Let's do delete. So you can do const, and the same way handle delete to do, and you can just do index again, not, and you would do and I think what you can do is I think you're gonna have to do.
You can use a splice method.
But I think the return is the new to no, the return is the one that's left. I think.
So you would return the new to-dos that is.
So you would do removed to do, and you would do to do's splice, is it? Index 1, I think, and then we would do to do's. Alright, so let's try that. So again, in here we pass it in. So handle delete, handle delete to do, and then in here we would do on delete, and it would be handle delete, handle delete. So that's the same way like we did before. And then in here we would say on click, and it would be again handle delete, or actually in this case we would just say handle delete. Better would be something like handle click, handle delete click. And then
you need to define
the const handle delete click. On delete index. Oh. Yeah. So this hopefully should work. Let's see if it is or not. So if I delete, well, let's try Thomas first. Yeah, Christina, Ricardo, right? So that works. So it's just passing in different functions we did before, basically. If you refresh now, it's going to be bug. Yeah.
Const removed to do.
Sorry?
We're not using removed to do. I was just looking at line 18 again, and so we are splicing the to do, but then.
Yeah, I could definitely just do this, right? The thing is that like I was just not sure. I thought that this is how it was, but it's just splice will return the removed element and it will alter the original array basically. So yeah, so this would be the you can just do it like that. Yeah, cool. So we have delete and that. So let's do a little bit of styling, because I mean the styles, I think in this case, are just not that important, but let's just do it. So if we go to to-do, we can say this is our, oh, by the way, first things first, we should change, because we have to-do list is a UL, so we should change this into li, right? So it's part of the list. Yeah. And then in here we can do some stuff, some styles. We can say this is our, where's my to-do list here? So you can give it some kind of class. You can say class to-do list, and in the styles you can say, is that a CSS or a CSS? To-do list, list style none. Do we have it imported already? Yeah. So list style none, margin 0, and padding 0 as well. Right, so here we go. And then we would say to do list li, which is our actual to do. We can say display flex, for example. So now everything is in one line. And yeah, and then we can do margin. I'm not gonna do too much styling for this because I don't think it's that worth it for you. I mean, are you very kind of like a confident with styling now?
Kind of.
I mean,
I wouldn't say very confident, but
yeah.
The more we do, we did a lot. Like at the beginning of the class, we did less because of we went to the back end. But
I mean, yeah, I mean, but you kind of know what the margins and stuff like that are.
Oh,
already,
of course,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, so I did a bit of styling on my exercise and had a bit of fun actually doing it. I think it's still there.
Cool. So now what we can do is.
Do you want to configure maybe your button as well? The delete button is a bit big, but I guess it's not that important.
So one thing I want to do is I want to somehow indicate that this is completed or not, right? So what we can do is we can say, for example, to do.
Like highlighted green or red or something.
Completed. And we can say if this will be a, let's just do this. Right, and then, oh, sorry, I just put this back here. And then in here we can just say class name completed class, and then in here we can say to do completed. I thought it was also something like this. Let me just check. Strike through text decoration. Yeah. No. Oh, line through. Sorry. Right, there you go. So all the completed ones will be line through, and we can also say that. Actually, let's move the class up here. Up here, and we can say to do completed h3. right? So now all the completed ones are kind of transparent and strike through on the title. Right?
Nice.
Cool. Let's go back to engineering. I prefer to do more of engineering than styling, especially when I want to show you how it works rather than how it looks. Right, so we have that, we have delete, we have this. So now I think it's time to go to the adding of the to-dos. So what we will do is we will create a new component, and we will say to-do form. Form. And we will put it somewhere at the bottom, let's say. So here's my to-do list. It's my application. Let's do this for now. Yep. So now in here we will have to-do form. Do not save. To-do form is not defined. Right, what's wrong? So to-do import to-do form from to-do form. We have to-do form, to-do form. What did I do wrong in here? Function to-do, export default to-do form, to-do form.
Did you save your to-do form? Yeah.
I think I saved everything. I'm not sure. Why is it highlighted orange? That's why.
And you have a little one.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's normal.
I don't use VS Code, so I'm not really sure what all these things mean. But to-do form, import to-do form from to-do form.
It's because maybe you need to put return something, or I know it can be a bit.
Now it's not. No, now it's there. What? Yeah, maybe you are right. Actually, maybe we should just
return no or something just to see.
Yeah, maybe it just doesn't take empty component or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird. Right. Okay, so we have the form, and we can just say basically all we need to do is we're gonna have a input, and we're gonna have button to submit. So okay, and value will be nothing, placeholder will be create to do something like that. Right, so now we have this, so we should be able to submit it. Now obviously you can write something in here. Right? This one should probably default value. Yeah, so you can write something in here and then you can submit it, but at the moment it submits the whole page. So what we need to do is we need to hook it up with the up. So in here again we need to pass it. So what we really want to do is we want to alter this state. So we want to pass some function to it that will alter this state. So we will say const handle add to do, right? And let's just say, you know, title. And what it will do is it will do set to do's, and it will add our new to do. So title completed will be false, and it will merge it with all the other to do's that we have already.
Yep.
And that should do it basically. So it will just create a new one and merge it with the others. And just make it a little bit more visible, probably. Right, and now we need to assign this in here. So handle add to do. So in here we will say on submit, because that's basically where we're submitting the form. And we will do handle add to do. So that's what it will call. And then in here we will say on submit, and we will do handle submit. We will create it here, so function handle submit. Actually, let's do it so really consistent. So this will have some kind of event. We need to prevent the submission, right? We don't want the page to reload, so we will do event prevent default. I think we did this together as well before.
Yeah.
And submit. And then we need to get the actual text, right? So the actual text from this basically, and submit it. So we will do on submit, and we will submit text. Now, how do we get the text from here? This will have actually internal piece of state, right? So when you change it, it will have its own state basically. There are different ways. One way is to create internal piece of state that will be updated every time you type something in there. The other one would be to kind of create a what is called reference in React. So you can create a reference to an actual DOM element, and then you can use the value from the reference. The reference should be used in when you really cannot use anything else from React. It's not really a good way to do it, because then you're actually touching DOM, and you don't really want to do that, let's say. So better way, we would create a new piece of state. So you would say const value equals use state, and then we would say, actually in here we should be able to use just value like this. I hope so. And then in here we do import
use state, yeah.
Use state from React. So now I think we should be able to just type something in. No, we're not. Okay. They must have changed something, because this is how I used to do it. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Let's just do this. So we will do value, and then on change handle change.
Basically, what's happening now is that you keep it as the initial state, so that way it doesn't move.
Yeah, it seems to be. I mean, I was expecting it to work, but it doesn't. So basically, what I'm doing now is that we just
you make it change. Yeah,
we make it change basically. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this should
should
work now. Yeah. So now basically what it's doing is that it's updating this piece of state every time we type something in. Now this is kind of, I think it's called like a fully controlled input field. I am surprised that the previous didn't work, because there should be something like a, React basically controls your input fields for you. I'm surprised it didn't work, but anyway, it doesn't matter. Maybe it would work with the ref. They might have changed something since I used it last time. So now we have the value, so we can actually submit it. So we can do on submit, and we submit the value. That's the latest when we press the submit. Now when we go here, we will receive the value in handle add to do, and we will add it to that. So let's see if that's true. So if we see hello world add, and we have hello world, right? So that works nicely. We should also in here probably, just to make it nicer, delete everything. So we can say on submit value, and then we will say set value to nothing, just to reset the field. So hey, set value to nothing. That should work. Maybe it didn't refresh. Refresh. It keeps surprising me, this thing.
Is it because the on submit then it's kind of acting as a return? It just doesn't.
I mean, it
set the value.
shouldn't, but maybe.
Well, okay, it's weird.
Yeah, that is weird. I mean, this probably will have something to do with the default value.
Why did you put default value and not value?
Yeah, because the value is basically the value. If you put it like this, then it's not. I think it's.
Oh, it's a bit difficult.
No, it is. It does change. Yeah, this is the difference between the default value and value. I don't. Do I have? They must have changed something definitely, because before it was kind of giving me an error that you need to have. Yeah, weird. Let me just fix this. I need to actually I need to read more about this, because it seems like they must have changed some stuff. Right. Anyway, so now we have this. You can add new one. It will add it to the top. That was one of the requirements. And you can delete it, and you can continue as you were doing. We can do hey and complete it, and hey and complete it. The adding to the top, I mean, I'm sure that you understand how I did it in here. So basically what we're doing is we're merging two arrays, and I just did this at the top. If you really want to add it to the top, like with functions from array, basically if you do, I think it was supposed to be maybe a little bit of a tricky question. So if you do push this, right? So if you would do this, then it will be added to the end of the array, because push adds it to the end of the array. So you would
I thought you couldn't do push because you need to. I mean, what Basil was saying is that you need to create a new array.
So you could do push, and then you could do this, right?
Oh, if you slice it or not.
But if you do it like that, then you will see that it's being added to the beginning of to the end of the array. And to add something to the beginning, so you can just Google it, and that is unshift. Right? What a silly name, but it's there. So you can do just unshift, and that should change it to, so you add it to the beginning of the array. Right? So you can do it that way. This might be a little bit neater, I don't know. I just did it with, I'm just used to using this kind of syntax with spreading and stuff. So yeah, I don't know which one is better, to be honest. But I think as long as they do the same thing, should be fine. Yeah. Cool. So I do have some console logs on there. I think it must be in the list.
Yeah, he doesn't like your classes as well. He wants it to be class name. I'm not sure why. So.
Sorry? Oh no, I already fixed that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, here. Yeah, so this one is fine. That one is fine. You can delete it. and so on. The sorting, you can do it as your homework because we are out of time, but it's the same thing as you would normally do in here what we were doing with the passing functions, right? So if you want to sort something, again, if you look at the up, what you really want to do with the sorting is you want to change the state, you want to change the order of these, right? So what you would do is you would create a function in here to sort something, to like change the position of the to-do. You would pass it down all the way to your to-do, and then in the to-do you would have two more buttons, one up and one down, and you would basically, when you click on it, you would pass back the index, and then it would sort basically. So you could do it that way, or you could do it in a way where what? I don't know what this is. You could do it in a way where you would actually add something to your data. So you could say, in here you could have another value which would be order 1, for example. So then when you resort them, when you change position of this one, you would go through all of them and you would change all the numbers in each of them. It's up to you. You would either do that or you would change the actual structure of the data. Each of them has some kind of advantage, but it's really up to you what you would choose to do. Right, before we go, any questions, please?
None for me. I think it was.
Was it understandable?
Very, very, very helpful. Yeah, no, very understandable, very clear.
Ricardo?
Great example. Thank you so much.
Right. Well, it was good to see you again, guys. And
good to see you as well.
I think we have a couple more weeks to go, or 1 or 2, so I should be here. It seems like the 4G held up pretty well, so that's good. And I will see you on the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy moving.
Yeah, thanks. See you later.